MegaJeff here again with a couple other new albums that came in recently. Well, not one came in, and one, I'll tell you a story behind that, and one I picked up. And they're new to me. But one's new and one's new to me. So yeah, and this is a band that, you know, that I followed in the 80s, and then they kind of disappeared, and then they kind of came back, and they're still kind of going strong now. But Alcatrazz, are you familiar with the newer stuff that Alcatrazz has done? This I found a copy of. It's a 2020 release. So Alcatrazz, of course, started in the 80s. The first album, the big draw for that was Yngwie Malmsteen. That's kind of the first band I think he went to. He went from the Steeler album with Ron Keel, where it's kind of like his U.S. It seemed like that was kind of his U.S. debut as a guitar player. Then he came over to Alcatrazz. He did the one album with Alcatrazz, you know, had a couple hits from that at MTV and everything. Then he left. The second Alcatrazz album had Steve Vai. Absolutely great album. I have both of those. Third album I never picked up. Guitar player was like Danny Johnson. Somebody. He I guess he was like in Derringer and Steppenwolf, and he in some other bands. I never really heard that. I'm on the lookout for it. And then they kind of disappeared. A couple of live albums coming out in there, but that was in the 80s, and then they kind of disappeared. Now, of course, the mainstay of Alcatrazz is Graham Bonnet, the vocalist Graham Bonnet. And of course, you know, we know him from Rainbow and Michael Schenker, and he was in Impellitteri for a while, a couple albums with them. So he's been around. He's a famous vocalist. So it's kind of his band with the revolving members that go around it. There have been some guys who have been on quite a few of the releases with him, bass player, place like that. So they did the 3 albums, and then they kind of disappeared. And then in 2017, actually, they put out a live album. So I think they got back together and did a live show. And then in 2020, they put out this, Born Innocent. It's a double record set. And it's interesting because if you look at the people that co-wrote some of these songs, you've got Chris Impellitteri, you've got Steve Vai, you've got Joe Stump, which he's a guitar player. I'll mention him in a second. You do have Bob Kulick, who worked with him. I guess the late Bob Kulick worked on some of these songs, because Graham did some stuff with Bob. Was that the Blackthorn album? Something that they've done together, I think. But anyway, so this time around, starting around here, we have Joe Stump on guitar. Now, I'm very familiar with Joe Stump, but maybe you're not. Joe Stump is one of those guitar shredders that put out quite a few albums in the 90s. I have the majority of that stuff. He also worked with Mike Viscera, formerly of Obsession and other bands. They put out the band I'm totally forgetting about. Absolutely great stuff. They put out a couple things. A lot of their stuff was on like Leviathan Records, which is David Chastain's label. Because Joe is one of those guitar shredders, his look and feel, let me see, does he still look like that? He always had, not as much, he always had a look that was very reminiscent of Ritchie Blackmore, which apparently was one of his heroes. He played the same kind of white guitar. He had the ruffled shirts and stuff. So people used to put him off as a Ritchie clone, but he really had his own style. His music was a bit heavier. A lot of instrumental albums, and then, like I say, he's done some stuff with bands. But this, I think, is one of the first, what I would call mainstream bands on a, major bands that I think maybe he's done some other work. I kind of lost touch with him after his stuff in the 90s and early 2000s. But so I was glad to see him pop up. Now he's a guitar player here. Now, 2020, like I say, they released this. I'm assuming some of these songs, since they're co-written, maybe were stuff that were from days gone by with some of the former members. I don't know, or if these people have worked together. Now, I'll mention this in a minute. After this album, they put out their album, and it's called 5. So, of course, they had 3 albums. This is their 4th album. And then the next year, 2021, they put out the album 5. At that point, Graham Bonnet is actually gone. So that's going to be the first album where Graham Bonnet is not. I mean, Alcatrazz to me has always just been Graham Bonnet's band. But I guess he stepped out. He's done some stuff with just the Graham Bonnet band since then. So I'm thinking he's been going that route more. And actually some of the same players, some of the same people co-writing on here worked with and or wrote stuff in the Graham Bonnet band. So it's kind of like maybe he's switching gears. He's done a couple albums with them, which have been phenomenal sounding. I don't have any of them on vinyl, but been listening to them digitally and online. And so with the album that follows after this, Doogie White takes over on vocals. I love Doogie White. He's done work with, the stuff I'm most familiar with is his work with Michael Schenker Group. So, but he's done a lot of other stuff. And so now he's a new singer. So he picked up in 2021 on an album called 5. And then they put out an album 2023, last year, that I'm totally drawing a blank on, but I've also listened to that. Still got Joe Stump on those on guitar, so there's been a little more consistency in sound as far as some of the members. But the latest two albums, or has it been 3? 2, have Doogie White. But anyway, enough about that. This one is the last one with Graham Bonnet. So, you know, it sounds great, and if you're familiar with him, his vocal style is still strong as ever, and, you know, musically and everything, it's right up there. And Joe Stump's an excellent guitar player. I have no quarrels with that sound. Now, the thing that I didn't realize until I really read these notes is some of the co-writing and some of the stuff is by, I couldn't find the one exactly, but it's by Giles Lavery, pronounce it right. I immediately recognized the name, but did not initially realize the connection here. I don't know if it's Lively or Lever. Anyway, I'm like, well, wait a minute. We know him from the other album that I got in recently. He's the singer for Warlord. Now, he picked up with Warlord recently, like in the past 10 years. Now, this is an album that Warlord put out. He's the vocalist, like I said. The connection with him and Graham Bonnet, Alcatrazz, whatever. He's done producing, he's done some songwriting, and he also worked with the Graham Bonnet band stuff. And he's also sort of kind of like one of their management team, part of the management. He's listed as management. And so he's multi-talented. He's got the business aspect, and he's been involved in a lot of stuff Graham Bonnet has done over the years. But on the side, he also sings for at least Warlord. I'm not sure what else he does. I just was funny to find him there. To begin with, this is the most recent Warlord album, and what this actually is a re-record of a bunch of songs by them from days gone past. So as I mentioned when I went through my whole Warlord collection not too long ago, Bill, the main core member guitar player, passed away a couple years ago, and the band has continued on in his memory, and the last album they released was actually mostly recorded by Bill before he passed away, so they finished those songs. This is the band going back and re-recording some of the classic songs from Warlord with the new lineup and stuff. You got Invaders, Battle of the Living Dead, Winds of Thor, War in Heaven, Deliver Us from Evil, Sons of a Dream, Achilles' Revenge. I'm trying to 8 songs. I'm thinking it's all re-records, but and see, it actually has Bill on guitars and bass on quite a few tracks. So again, I'm thinking some of these songs were songs that were being done, didn't get completed, and they fixed it. So this is a new album from the Ashes. So I had to grab this, From the Ashes to the Archives, because I just love Warlord, and this is the most recent one. Now, I'll tell you the story behind this album. I have this on my wish list. I knew it was coming. Eventually, I wanted to get it. I've been watching it. But I don't know how many of you, when you buy online, I buy online, it seems like a lot of the stores I buy from now use the software, the cart, the shop feature, you know, the software checkout shop. And so with every purchase, you get like a few shop dollars. And I've never used them. Every time I see the emails that say what you can do with them, I'm like, I don't want that stuff. It's cosmetics and clothing. And I'm like, blah, blah, blah. So I don't know how many shop bucks I've let go by. But the other day, I got an email from Shop Bucks that says, you've got X amount of dollars. I only had like $7 or $8 in Shop Bucks, but it had 2 stores that sold vinyl. One of which sold like extreme metal and death metal, which, believe it or not, is where this came from. So when I went over there and went to order it, it says save $17 using your Shop Bucks. And so I bought this album saving $17, bringing it down to like, it was only $20-something, so I brought it down to like under $15. And I'm like, yeah. So I grabbed this immediately. And there were quite a few albums in that shop that were not extreme metal that were on vinyl that I had in my cart, but then I finally got to Warlord. I threw everything out of my cart and bought this. But now I realize with the Shop Bucks I get, I can go in, and there's quite a few things on this one site. And there were 2 sites they listed that I can get. So it was like free money, of course, for just doing what you do. So I grabbed this, and like I say, I knew that this has been on my wish list since I knew it came out. And there are different colors. Mine's kind of a purplish red, I guess. Purple vinyl. So yes, Warlord. So I picked this up, and that still keeps me up to par and complete with my Warlord discography of stuff, because I did pick up all of the High Roller Records reissues that they did. So there you go. Alcatrazz, Warlord, slight connection between management and songwriting and stuff like that, and the singer for this band, which I thought was a novel thing. So that's why I showed those two together. But that's it for this one. Just some fun stuff, and I'll see you later. Rock on and rock hard.